Beach. It is Tuesday, October 24th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, if you'll please do the roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill.
Here.
Commissioner Frislowski.
Here.
Commissioner Marone.
Here.
Commissioner Grouse.
Here.
Mayor Petrilla.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, first item that we have is a presentation by our State Representative Linda Cheney for the Fire Station 22.
Good evening, Mayor Petrilla, Commission. Thank you so much for having me. We're going to have to figure out a better place for checks because there's going to be a lot more of these. As Mayor Petrilla said, I'm Linda Cheney. I'm the state representative for the majority of the beaches, including St. Pete Beach. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome you back, Wayne. And to congratulate Mayor Petrilla on a very impressive win. Some may call it an edict, so congratulations. And I have been waiting for this day since 2007 when Commissioner Frislowski was mayor, and I was city commissioner, and we were having conversations about our very old fire station in Paso Grill, built in 1974, a very old fire station. So it's a personal moment of excitement and pride for me to be able to present you with a $2 million check from the state of Florida to help restore, renovate the fire station in Paso Grill. And I understand from the chief we're going to need more because prices are going up.
Always need more.
So file your appropriations early and we'll get you some more.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen, did you want to come up for a bit?
Who's taking?
All guys in the back, short guys in the front.
Yeah, thank you, State Representative Cheney. That was many years in the making and the Herculean effort. She's one of our neighbors and just a great friend to the beaches in our town, so thank you very much. All right, do we have any amendments to the agenda, please?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, excuse me, I'd like to move consent item 4B, which is the proposed calendar for commission meetings in 2024, and move that to an action item for discussion.
We will make that action item 5C.
Mayor, I just want to inform you, there are two requests for continuances on the agenda. Just so you, I don't know if you want to handle that up front or not, or wait for those items to be called.
I think we can wait for those items to be called, or do we want to make a decision now?
I will tell you, let me see which So 5A is a lot split, and that one I'm recommending that it does get continued because the representative, the applicant couldn't be here. Representative couldn't be here, so there's no one here for that. So I would say that that one does need to be continued. And the second one is
Number
7A, right?
Commissioner Frizlowski, that's in your district?
Yeah, we have quite a few people, I believe, here. So I'd kind of like to know the reason why to
Yeah.
continue. I'd prefer to hear it.
Okay. So are we gonna, so we probably should take each item one at a time. So the first one, do we do a date certain on that?
I didn't hear any date certain by the applicant for 5A, the lot split. Brandon or Kristen, did you hear from the applicant?
They had asked for item 5A to be continued to the first meeting in November.
Okay, so it would be, so that would require a motion and a vote to move it to the first, what is it, November 7? November 7?
6th, it's a Monday.
6, sorry.
Monday.
Monday.
November 6th.
Yeah, I'd move that action items number 5A, lot split for number 23079 at 102 15th Avenue, be continued until November 6th.
Second. City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Frizlowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Marone,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill.
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And then the reason for,
Yeah, I don't know if the applicant's representative wants to make the request on that. Katie, I don't want to do it for you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Katie Cole with law firm of Hill Ward Henderson, representing the applicant Plaza Beach Resort. We did communicate to staff yesterday our desire for a continuance and sent a formal letter to the mayor and commission today requesting the same. The applicant had a community meeting last Wednesday, received the staff report late Thursday afternoon. Upon reflection of both of those things, there are some conditions in the staff report and some feedback from the meeting on Wednesday. The applicant would like to have the opportunity to have further discussions with the neighborhood and with staff on those conditions and concerns.
And who was the meeting with on Wednesday?
Some of the Lido Beach neighborhood.
he was there?
Mr. Cezanne?
Mhm. Was he there?
Was Mr. Cezanne at the meeting?
Yeah,
Yes.
because I was at the meeting and he wasn't.
There was another meeting on the previous day that Rob had called.
The previous day, because she said Wednesday.
Oh, sorry. Was it Tuesday? It was Wednesday. It was Wednesday. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I would prefer to have the meeting tonight. I'm prepared to see people from the public are here.
You can always start the meeting, and if it ends up where the commission feels like there needs to be more discussion or any of the issues that Ms. Cole's bringing up need to be further explored, you can always continue it at that point if you feel like you need to. But it's strictly your decision here.
So they're going to make substantive changes to their application. Does it make sense for us to hear an application that they want to change and they don't want to now submit? At least from a procedural standpoint. Now, I would like to hear from the residents so that I have a more well-rounded understanding of the residents' concerns before the final application is submitted by the applicant. But I see no reason for the applicant to go forward with a de facto moot application that, I mean, I guess they could withdraw it and then resubmit, and we'd be at the same place. But I also had the concern that we have all these residents here, and I would like I would like to hear from them, and I think we can do, if everybody's agreeable to it, we can do both.
Yeah, but by your point, if they're changing it, then what the residents are speaking to may or may not even apply.
Right.
And so if they want to withdraw the application, are they restarting the process from scratch? Are they going back to TRC? You know, what's
Yeah.
the
That's-
procedure here?
Yeah, and I'm trying to understand, you know, I've read the application, I've read the staff report, and I'm trying to understand what substantive changes we're referring to.
Certainly. So based on the staff report, obviously the project went to TRC in April, and I'm only reporting based on my conversations with staff and the applicant because I was not part of that process. So please give me leave from that regard. There were comments that were received in April. The applicant attempted to respond to those and had submitted those responses in August, September timeframe. This hearing was supposed to occur, I'll look at in September, I think, right? Yeah. And there was a delay. And so we received the staff report. There are some substantive issues, for example, a requirement and that makes the entire application moot in the event a crosswalk is not approved by DOT at the intersection. That's a very significant condition that was new to us, that we would like the opportunity to have a conversation with DOT to understand, does it even make sense moving forward if that's a condition of the city staff and something that the commission would want. There are other items in the application where the conditions of approval obviate the request. And so we would like time to sit with staff and look at the landscaping and sidewalk. You see on the conditions of approval, there are 3 or 4 conditions of approval with respect to the variances that specifically require landscaping and sidewalks where the applicant had requested for a variance. So we're either requesting a variance that you have the choice to grant or not, or there's a condition of approval to plant it, but they kind of conflict with one another. We just think that it would be worthy of taking the time to sort through those items. We can certainly withdraw the application, and we would request if we do that it would be without prejudice, so we can resubmit, and we're happy to go through TRC again if that's what this commission desires. But there are substantive issues that arose when we received the staff report on Thursday, specifically the crosswalk being approved by DOT, together with some of the variance conditions that we think is worthy of further discussion.
Okay, so but from what I'm hearing, it was mentioned, I'm not sure who said it, substantive changes. I don't hear any changes. I hear that you're not agreeing with staff's recommendations.
Well, we don't know yet because we haven't been able to have that conversation, Commissioner. So receiving these conditions, the substantive changes could be that we end up not asking for variances if the conditions of approval obviate those requests anyway. Substantively, it's still the request to have a parking lot, yes, but substantively, is it going to be that number of the hours of operation, the operations that were provided by Courtesy Valet that we provided? We received some feedback from, I think the neighbors, and the staff report includes some feedback about that. The applicant is willing to work on those types of conditions and policies and modifications to see if there is a place where this is an application that is supported by both staff and the neighbors.
And maybe Matthew can answer this because he was at the magistrate hearing, but I think there was an expiration date where the conditional use application had to be heard by a certain date, or otherwise fees start applying and accruing.
We understand that.
Okay. So this is going back.
Those would still hold. I mean, that doesn't.
Well, if I remember correctly, again, Matthew was there, so I don't, maybe he remembers better than I do, but if I remember the order correctly, it was if it's not heard and approved by a certain date, then they would be responsible for fines accruing back a year?
Potentially.
Yeah, Matthew, if you could.
So this item will be heard on November 13th, regardless of whether or not you hear the CUP variance application today. And at that meeting, we will be, I guess, trying to find them in violation and impose fines at the special magistrate. And that was an order that was entered at the October meeting to allow this to happen, but the magistrate was clear whether it's approved or denied or continued, we're still going to move forward with the code enforcement case on November 13th.
So, I mean, is this something, Ms. Cole, that if we start the process and staff does their presentation and explains the conditions, I mean, obviously, as part of their presentation, they're going to explain the conditions that they're recommending to the commission, and then they would know what those are, and then you can address those. And if it gets to a point where, you know, it starts looking like maybe a continuance is necessary, then do it then.
Respectfully, I just think that that would be a waste of the commission's time. I mean, the tribunal's time. There are very substantive, I mean, having a condition that says you have to have a DOT crosswalk permitted and installed before, or else the entire process is void. The applicant should have the opportunity to pick up the phone and call DOT and ask those questions if it's even reasonable. Why would he spend the money going through this process otherwise?
Okay.
Commissioner Grill?
So the continuance, do you have an estimate of when you would want this to come
When
back?
I spoke to Mr. Berry, we said December 5th would be a reasonable time frame. I think that would give the applicant time to speak with both the neighbors again and DOT, and that would give you time to re-advertise if you desired to re-advertise, or it could be a date certain otherwise.
No, December 5th.
Is that the right date?
Yeah, that is the right date. No, she is correct, but there are some other conditional use applications in the works that December 5th might be unavailable. So I just wanted to make you aware.
Certainly, if we would like.
Well, and I'll tell you,
First meeting in January.
I mean, the reason I ask is, I think we're 18 months into this process. First one, 18, then in August, it was, the permit was returned, the application was returned, it was found deficient, and we resubmitted the application. Now we're another 8 months later, and now we have something else comes up, and now we're pushing it out another, we're in 45 days. So I think everyone wants to get this to end game, excuse me, and excuse me, you know, what's going to happen if there's other conditions that come later, or there's from staff, you know, based on what you find from DOT, et cetera, then we're going to ask for another continuance. And everyone needs to have the right time. Don't get me wrong. They're trying to rush it so that you don't have time to do the proper analysis, so you can present the case. But how do we collectively get to end game and move forward? Because I think that's what everyone's trying to do.
Believe me, I would also like to do that.
No, so...
And I think this is how. Today, if we could spend hours here tonight debating that, and we're really not going to come to a conclusion. So I think that we would respectfully request that you continue it to a date certain. If you all are not inclined to do that, then, you know, I would confer with my client if we simply want to withdraw it, and we'll resubmit. Tonight is not the right time to hear it based on the substantive comments.
So December 5th, the next meeting is December...
5th and December 12th, then January 9th on the proposed schedule that you have on the agenda tonight would be the first meeting in 2024.
I mean, if we do it, I would propose to do it in this calendar year. My view, if we decide to do it.
Anyone want to make a motion?
So how do we assure that this comes out of technical review and there is a gap sufficient enough to evaluate the technical review committee's recommendations before the applicant comes here, so they're not saying, well, this happened Thursday, this happened Friday, we just got this, we just got that. So I'd like to, if we're going to, this is going to get in whatever vehicle this gets moved, whether it's an applicant withdrawing the application or it gets continued, I think we need to have some parameters so this doesn't happen again. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying the applicant, you know, the application is a victim of the circumstances that we have.
So, based on my conversation with staff tonight, they indicated that these were issues that were discussed and talked about at TRC, and staff is here if you want to ask them that. So I don't know personally, I wasn't there, but I mean,
Well, I don't know how long ago the TRC was.
April 5th.
April 3rd.
Oh, well, okay.
So, I mean, based on that, I'd like to hear it then. I don't know there's any reason why we put this off. I'd like to keep it on the agenda.
I'll disagree.
I mean, when I heard substantive changes, I was maybe open to that, but I'm not hearing any substantive changes.
I'm just hearing hurdles for meeting conditions, which is not a substantive change.
Right,
It's
right.
if we can, then we will. If we can't, then we won't.
But
okay.
Respectfully, we'll go ahead and withdraw the application.
Yeah.
And we'd request that the board allow us to do that without prejudice, so we can resubmit and go through this process.
So you're withdrawing your application?
We'd ask if the board would allow us to withdraw without prejudice. The code asks that
6
you have
months.
48 hours advance notice to withdraw, and it would be without prejudice. It's the board's option to allow it to be without prejudice. Otherwise, they would have to wait 6 months to reapply.
Mm-hmm.
I think this has been going on for almost 2 years. There's been plenty of time. If at this point you decide to withdraw it, I mean, that is your client's purview. Maybe they need another 6 months.
So it sounds like they're not willing to do it without prejudice, that it would be, you'd have to withdraw, and then you would have 6 months, you would have to wait the period of 6 months. I believe it's 6 months, right, Kristen? Right. Yeah.
Certainly. Okay, thank you. You can remove us from the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need a motion?
No, they withdrew it. They
Still need the approval of the agenda.
I know.
Okay.
I was going to ask the.
We're still on changes for the agenda.
Yeah, we're still on changes. I was going to ask if we could add a discussion item with regards to the East Corey Landings property.
Chris, can you?
discussion.
A discussion item for the East
Discussion item,
Corey.
East Corey Landing property as it relates to potential acquisition by the city.
No, they just withdrew it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. All right, everyone, if you'll please just allow us to move forward with the meeting, and respectfully we ask that unless you're called to the front, that you do not speak.
so if, Mr. Mayor, the question I wanted to ask you was if, since this application is withdrawn and the item removed, from the agenda, will we be hearing audience comments related to this, or shall we tell the residents that they're free to go home, that we will or will not be hearing?
It's no longer on the agenda.
Right, it's
So,
no longer on the
I mean,
agenda.
But on general audience comments.
Yeah, if somebody generally wants to,
Yeah.
but I would, yeah. I mean,
I get you. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I'd like to ask that we move item 6A to the first item before audience comments. Any other changes to the agenda? Do we have a motion to amend the agenda?
Move to amend the agenda.
Second?
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fislowski?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, first we have item 6A, first reading of ordinance 2023-7, the fire pension plan.
An ordinance of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 66, Pensions and Retirement, Article 4, Firefighters Retirement System, Division 1, Generally, Division 2, Administration, and Division 3, Benefits of the Code of Ordinances of the City of St. Pete Beach, amending Section 66-253 membership, amending Section 66-252 benefit freeze and maximum benefit, amending Section 66-291 Parent A Board of Trustees, adding a new Section 66-297 Plan Closed to New Firefighters, participation in the Florida retirement system, providing for codification, conflict, severability, correction of scrivener's error, construction, publication, and an effective date.
All right, who's up?
I think Bonnie is.
Bonnie, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hi. You're up.
Bonnie Jensen, Fosner, Kaufman, Jensen, and Levinson. We are the attorneys for the pension board. We drafted the ordinance to close the pension plan. This is a companion ordinance to the benefit increases that you all considered last month, I believe it was. So that was ordinance 2003-06. This ordinance changes 4 sections of the current pension plan, just documenting the fact that there will be no new members who will be added to the pension plan. So all the firefighters who are in the plan as of November 30th, assuming the December 1st closing date, all of those firefighters will become members of the pension plan. It notes that as of December 1st, the plan would be closed to new firefighters, and all firefighters hired on or after that date would become members of the Florida retirement system. We updated the section on the benefit freeze, so the benefits were frozen back in December of 2012. We added just in a provision that the plan would be closed to new firefighters and that all firefighters would become members of the Florida retirement system. We updated the section on the Board of Trustees and the selection of the employee members, anticipating that at some point the employee group will shrink to a level where we won't be able to get firefighters who are active to participate, and so allows for a different method of selection. So if there are no active or retired firefighters that remain in the plan that are capable of serving, the remaining board members can elect an individual to serve in the active firefighter seat, and that upon receipt of the person's name, you all, as the legislative body, would, as a ministerial duty, appoint that person to the Board of Trustees. Finally, we added the section closing the plan, indicating that the city would join into the Florida retirement system as soon as practical, that firefighters who are active in the plan on November 30th can elect to participate in the Florida retirement system or to continue to stay in this plan in accordance with the state statutes. That is a one-time opportunity, and the decision that they make is irrevocable. Any firefighters that are hired prior to December 1st to elect to join FRS will have the option then of retaining their accrued benefit in the plan or receiving a refund of their contributions in the plan. In order to purchase their service in the Florida retirement system, they would have to take a refund of contributions from this plan. They could not keep their accrued benefit available to them in this plan. And then in order to receive any benefit from the plan, they have to reach normal or early retirement age and terminate employment with the city. So just, explaining what will happen to them if they elect to remain in the plan and when their benefits would begin. So that's the ordinance. We also provided you with an actuarial impact statement. So the actuarial impact statement assumes that all of the people who are in the pension plan will remain in the pension plan. If there are people who elect to change, then that change will be reflected in an actuarial valuation done after the ordinance is passed. The cost of the pension plan increases goes up from 43.1% to 45.9%. That increase is really due to the unfunded actuarial liability and the anticipation that payroll isn't going to grow any longer. If you have a copy of the impact statement before you, the actuary indicated that because the payroll isn't going to grow, which they had assumed would grow at the rate of 1.38% per year, they're now anticipating that it will grow at 0%. So that $7 million of the unfunded actuarial liability will become a larger piece of the payroll. And so when they calculate the contribution of the city based upon payroll, that number is a larger percentage, and you can see that in the increase between the current minimum required contribution of 55.8%, and it now goes, with this change, it will go up to 58.6%, and that change is due because of the change in the assumed payroll growth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, well, I did. This is Vice Mayor Grill. We didn't have a copy of the actuarial report that you're referring to. I'm not quite following the comment about 0% increase in salary.
So when the actuary makes their calculations, they assume that the payroll will grow. It's not salary increases. It's a payroll growth. In other words, assuming that new people will come on board, and that the payroll number will grow on an annual basis. So because there aren't going to be any new members that are coming into the plan, the payroll will not grow. The payroll will decrease.
Okay, I got it.
Because as each person retires, no one's coming into the plan to replace them. And so he's not going to assume going forward that there's going to be any growth in the payroll. And the method that he used to calculate the payoff of the unfunded actuarial liability had a built-in 1.38% growth rate. And so now that he's not including the 1.38% growth rate, the payroll will grow at 0, which means that the unfunded actuarial liability is a larger portion of the contribution rate and a larger portion of the payroll, because it is a fixed number of a shrinking. The denominator is going to shrink while the other number remains constant.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I'm not an actuary, so I'm just trying to explain it the way that I understand. If you need more information, I'll be happy to get it written by the actuary himself.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance 2023-07.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next we have audience comments. City Clerk, do we have any?
We do.
All right.
Deb Scheckner?
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Deborah Scheckner, Bocasega Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach, Florida. So I am going to address a few issues with the parking lot. It is harmful, not only to our neighborhood, but to the people who walk in our neighborhood. Traffic noise lots lights, and the parking lot property is about from here to here to our pavilion and to our adult playground. Just wanted to make that clear, because I was even surprised how close it was when I was there the other day. Is it detrimental to public safety welfare? There are comprehensive, common sense, and rational reasons as we look at this parking lot. I don't know if I'm allowed to say to not approve it because it's been taken away. But the main job of a government is to protect the safety and well-being of its citizens. In fact, it's one of the core essential jobs of our government. You can add some utilities, the environment, and a few other things to that, but health and safety is literally number one. And we learn that every single year when we might have to evacuate. And you make sure we do. So public safety, of course, is great concern. Most folks walk or bike to this park, as there are only 2 parking spots. 46th Avenue and Gulf Boulevard is a heavy, active traffic area with multiple driveways, ingress and egress to the Publix shopping center. Backups are frequent from Gulf Boulevard onto 46. If you're turning left, everybody else has to be backed up on 46, so you can make that left into Publix or to Mirabella or to your apartment. Backups are frequent and cause traffic jams. This area also floods, and when it does, you have to go somewhere else because you can't drive through, sometimes for hours. Walkers, joggers, bicyclists, moms and dads with kids will have to maneuver around the coming and going of cars and larger vehicles, if I read that correctly. It's not just going to be cars. There might be some larger vehicles in there. It will be hazardous conditions, and people will face it with their peril. And you add valets running across Gulf Boulevard, it's a recipe for disaster. And a little aside here, I looked up the company that they're using. They have 2 columns. Not one of them was hotel valets. I thought that was interesting. It will, according to real estate agents and title companies, that unsightly views, noise, and yes, parking lots negatively impact property values and property values within the neighborhood. If you live next to this, the impact will be felt. Homeowners' peace, harmony is at stake. Weekends and holidays will be horrendous. Parking lot is not compatible with the neighborhood and in fact will be detrimental to health, safety, property values, and the right to enjoy your home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Amy Auerbach.
Amber, can you pull up the overhead, please?
Please state your name and address for the record.
Amy Auerbach, 240 46th Avenue.
Yeah.
I got 2 things to share. Thank you so much for your service to our city. I have some comments to make, just to ask the city to increase the level of code enforcement at the corner of Gulf and 46th.
Brian and Doc Kim, I'm sorry.
So, oh, you guys can't see it, but this is a picture that was taken this morning
They can zoom in.
where there continues to be illegal parking at this lot. Okay. So, I know we're not here to discuss every element of it, so I'll be quick, but the special magistrate did, I believe, specifically say no RV parking. So here's an RV, so this property owner is in direct violation of the special magistrate order. Also, this fence that continues to be unpermitted is unsightly. Residents want it gone, and this fence is still unpermitted. And then this fence is causing a litter issue because we've collected over 100 zip ties that are sitting on this property as litter. When the storms come, the zip ties are cut and they're not picked up by the owner, and they have a risk of going into our waterways. So those are just the 2 quick comments I want to make tonight, now that the conditional use permit has been withdrawn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Flanagan.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Mark Flanagan, 522 Boca Ciega Isle. Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, I think I'm going to save my powder for if they apply in 6 months. I'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lena Sepika, sorry.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Picas, and I'm a resident at 42 45th Avenue. I represent my wife and infant son who can't meet right in here, and we'll keep the peace with that little one. So I sent a detailed message to the city listing some of the concerns regarding the proposal that was received and as presented at the time now withdrawn. In summary, my family and I are concerned about the following: the impact of public safety regarding the operation of a valet service and parking across Gulf and the influx of vehicle traffic potentially on residential streets, the impact of public safety regarding a large group of people potentially parking and using the public park near our address, and the security around the proposed lot, as it would be a private lot not patrolled by police, the potential for disturbances and increased criminal behavior, the environmental impact of this lot, and the variance that appeared to be on that proposal, during storms and et cetera, the loss of publicly used walkways and paths that have been used for decades due to the variances, and all of the above, kind of the impact of desirability and value for the surrounding residences. The city lost a huge potential opportunity to use this land and convert it into a public space that has been used for decades. Clearly, the resistance by the local neighborhood should show what the locals thought of it: a green space for use by residents and wildlife with light usage as a utilities lot. I have fond memories of using this area as a park when visiting my grandparents, and had hoped it would remain a green space for my son. As one of the few remaining Lido Beach Lithuanians, I can attest to the use of this land as a public space for decades despite its commercial use. The land that is now Lido Park, I believe, was donated by Mr. and Ms. Gudonis, who realized the inability to develop the land for a profitable venture due to its proximity to a water utility and then used by the city and electrical utilities and residences. Instead of developing a commercial or residential use lot, they donated this land to be used as a park and as one of the few remaining green spaces on the island. Over the years, it has gone from an empty lot to a playground with mature trees that should be expanded as possible. Lastly, as a resident, we urge the city to always uphold its ordinances in all proposed project, residential or commercial, particularly as 22-1, purpose and intent of landscaping and trees protection, states that it is the intent and purpose of these regulations to provide standards for landscaping and tree protection to improve the appearance of the city, as well as assist in the natural control of air, water pollution, and soil conservation. Emphasis shall be placed on landscaping as a means of achieving beauty in the community, and it will be required on all projects. And in some projects and areas, it will be the primary tool available. Landscaping is considered extremely important to the aesthetic of the city and environmental goals of the city. Thank you for the rant.
Thank you so much. Next comment, please.
Trisha Brogan. I don't know if she left. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Denise Chase.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, guys. Denise Chase, 46th Avenue, St. Pete Beach. I clearly came today in response to the Lido Park construction, and I really appreciate you guys standing ground and not letting this continue on forever. Unfortunately, that's now left us with 6 months of not knowing exactly what's going to happen. So I think as somebody that lives directly down the street, what I'm most concerned about is understanding now, like, how do we maximize this time to help beautify that space as much as possible. Right? I mean, when those trees came down like months ago, like my kids literally said, like, Mommy, how in the world did they cut down those beautiful trees? Right? I didn't know how to respond. I'm like, I don't know. I think it was illegal. Like, what do you say? So I asked, like, is there anything between now and then? I know Matthew said the November hearing's happening no matter what, so like that's good news. But how do we start like putting those trees back in anticipation of not having concrete poured on top of where they used to be? The rest is mute until we figure out what's going on. But I think that we have time now that we can use productively, and I just thank in advance and ask for your support in figuring out how we do the most that we can together during that time.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Edna Hicks.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Edna Hicks, and I live on 46th Avenue as well in St. Pete Beach. And as has been stated before and will be probably reiterated, and has been reiterated by the many concerned neighbors, the parking lot is in a direct violation of the Activity Center District's intended purpose. According to the comprehensive plan, the commercial redevelopment will be encouraged in a manner that will serve the retail services needs of residents and visitors alike for several decades in the future. A restaurant, maybe. A park, even better. But a parking lot? We are concerned about the safety of both our residents and our visitors and cannot afford a high-density use with additional people crossing Gulf Boulevard. Clear and present danger at this intersection is 3 pedestrians have been killed recently, impacting the life not only of those dead people, but of the one person that hit them. Through no fault of her own, this tragedy will impact her for the rest of her life. The city should not reward violators of our codes and ordinances, and thank you for standing up to them tonight. Additional parking is not needed there, as there have been no traffic studies or any studies submitted to reveal the potential use as a parking lot. And what about the aesthetics of the facility that Amy hit on? It is horrible, with a chain link fence and a blue tarp over it. When I first moved here in 2020, this was a beautiful park with plenty of shade where I walked my dog. It is also frequented by families and children taking advantage of the playground behind where Lido Beach is now proposing to add a parking lot. And who knows what other plans they have or are contemplating in the future. The looks of this today is horrible, and I mean terrible. Not only the fence, but that blue tarp makes it even worse and should come down immediately. Half the time it is blowing on our face when we walk by or it's on the ground. The fence should be removed since it was not permitted, and the land should be sodded as required by code. Instead of looking at a cup in 6 months, the city should be considering violation hearing, which I guess we are, and it should be scheduled as soon as possible. This is a residential neighborhood with a park for our kids. It is the commissioner's job, as well as the employees of St. Pete Beach, to protect this area, and we thank you for doing that.
Thank you for your comments. All right. There are no further audience comments. We will move on to the consent agenda, item 4.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
City Clerk, if we please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next we have action item 5B, Sunset Park Stormwater Repair.
I think Mr. Clark is here to address that. Mike Clark, Public Works Director. This item will address a stormwater pipe that has collapsed in the parking lot. It is a repeat failure, as evidenced by a previous patch and evidence of some disturbance underneath that's not consistent with a singular motion of soils and debris. This Roland is our large pipe contractor. As you've heard a number of times on other emergency projects and other projects, we did not declare this to be an emergency. It's a stormwater break. We can bring it to you in normal fashion. It is a time and materials contract, and so when the contractor and us, Public Works, we take a look at the scope of the work, and we kind of agree we have to cut so much asphalt, we've got to excavate so much material, we've got to reach the pipe. We think it might require 1 or 2 sticks of replacement, then we have to backfill it and then compact it and then resurface it. And in the course of doing all that, we think it's going to take this kind of materials and this kind of time and this kind of equipment, and that's all listed out in the work details. And in accordance with the contract, it's all there's multipliers for the costs associated with each of those items, and we come up with a total. That total is is our best shot at what we believe the project will take. It may take less. Sometimes it takes a little more, depending on what we find. But the contractor only submits invoice for what is actually performed as work goes, and that is verified by our on-site inspector, who's there daily with his reports.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for
Yes, sir.
Clark. It sounded to me like you said that there's some subsidence issue that's resulted in this repeated failure. Are we using a geotechnical engineer to consider what the subsidence issue is so that we can address, I hate to use it, the root cause of the problem, so that we don't have this repeated subsidence issue?
So when I use the term subsidence, in the context that you're referring to...
In the geological
it's a geological issue. In this case, it's a washout issue. Water, as it moves in and out of the pipe at high tides, is pushing through the crack or the break or whatever is wrong with the pipe itself. And that action, that motion, is pulling material into the pipe and voiding it from underneath the asphalt. And at some point in time, there's no longer enough structural strength underneath the asphalt to carry the weight, and it collapses into the hole.
What's the level of redundancy of the pipe?
It's a fairly robust piece of concrete. I mean,
No, is there redundancy to it? So if water leaks out, then it leaks out into a second tier?
No, it's based in situ soil. All of our pipes are based in situ soil. The only double tanks that I know of are for fuel storage.
I'm just thinking out loud, because we're going to be in there, going at it again. Is there some methodology that can be applied to this issue so that it's not a repeated issue? I mean, you've now described to me the action of the water. What can we do to prevent? Can we do something to prevent it from?
The best prevention is proper implementation to begin with. So you want to get your bedding compacted properly. You want to get your bedding stone laid properly. You want your elevations of the connecting pieces of pipe to be properly joined. And then you want your backfill at proper density compaction, and then you get your overlayment on it. That envelope around that pipe at proper density and compaction provides that stability that you're asking about.
Can I ask a quick question, Mike? The last time we had this issue did we expose this pipe? Did we dig down to expose the pipe, or did we just fill and re-asphalt?
I don't know, because it predates my service to the city.
See, that's the thing. I don't know that we've ever gone down and seen what this pipe was the last time. I don't know that we did that.
I do know that the patch that was there to begin with was not large enough to be a pipe replacement patch.
Right.
So what they did is they dug up, they took a look at what they could do. There's a number of ways that you can kick the can down the road, so to speak. You can just put some flowable fill around it and hope that seals the joint. You can put a piece of plywood over top of it and throw some dirt in the hole. There's all kinds of techniques that have been used in the past that we'll find out when we dig it up.
Okay.
Well, you've been with the city for...
Coming up on 8 years.
Yeah, I was going to guess 8. So it was before that. So, well, you could tell by the patch. I just looked down the aerial even. The patch isn't big enough for them to have really dug it all the way down.
But
so
they did not do what we're going to do.
But this is doing it the right way.
This is doing it the proper, yes.
And that pipe's, who knows how old that pipe is, how long that pipe's been in there.
I'm going on 60 to 70 years at least.
Yeah. So I think it's just one of those things that, I did have a question though. I noticed that we're having to piggyback off of Tampa Bay Water. Do we only have an emergency contract with Roland? We don't have it like a continuous services?
It's both.
Contract?
We use them for emergencies and we use them for routine work also.
So why are we having to use piggyback off of Tampa Bay Water then?
It was faster and easier to use their contract rather than solicit for our own that would do the same exact thing.
But we don't have a contract like Tampa Bay Water that has a menu of unit prices that we could have used?
This is that contract.
I believe what happened.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, Wayne.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we had the option when we brought them on to either bid it out ourselves or piggyback on another entity's contract. I believe the commission probably made that decision to piggyback this other contract rather than...
Oh, we piggybacked a while back onto this one. Okay,
yes,
I got it. Okay.
Yeah, we've had this contract.
Okay, now I understand it better. I was just... yeah, okay, now I understand it. So you're pretty much doing what I...
We're issuing
you just added that contract in there. That's maybe what confused me a little bit.
Yeah.
In a way, it's kind of good because we're getting prices from 2021.
Yeah. So,
as I've mentioned a bunch of times, the last 2 years, construction costs have gone up a lot, so.
Think of this work as a task order on a construction contract, similar to what we do task orders on our architectural engineering.
I understand. I understand now. This is an ongoing contract. We just previously used, we're not just using Tampa Bay Water for this one.
We've used this contract probably 60 or 70 times.
Yeah, okay. I'm good. Yes, sir.
So, Mike, I went over the other day on the north side. This is the I call it the sinkhole. It looks like what happened on Gulf Winds and 64th. It washed out and everything just collapsed. We've also got some area, though, I would call between where the asphalt, I'm trying to come up with the right term, where the asphalt stops, but before the seawall, that's curbed in.
Yes.
That is just complete sand and exposed, looks like irrigation pipes. Will this cover that? I mean, it's very, and
what you're describing is storm damage, and so we specifically did not include any of that work in this project, so that when we have that project done, that it will be submitted to FEMA for reimbursement.
And is that on the schedule at some point?
We're scoping that work right now, and we'll be bringing some suggestions to the city manager as to how to address that.
Okay.
There are some options in the park that might make it better, and doing it at less cost.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the utilization of the existing on-call civil and large pipeline contractor services agreement for Sunset Park stormwater pipe repairs in the amount of $70,472.50.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Brzezowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 5C, the 2024 City Commission meeting schedule. Commissioner Groh?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I pulled it out for discussion for one main purpose. So first off, I'll say I don't have a problem with the dates. I think the dates are as they need to be. They take into account the various public holidays and et cetera as we go through 2024. But one of the things that I've been thinking about is, and as I talk to our colleagues in other surrounding cities, some of them actually don't have meetings in the summertime. Some of them are a bit surprised when I tell them, well, we go 12 months, two meetings a month, 12 months a year, like clockwork. Then they laugh at us or whatever, so we have some discussion. So that aside, we can be laughed at, that's fine. But then as I start looking at how do we make sure that we have an environment where we can attract and retain people who want to get involved with the city and want to volunteer their times and give service to the city. And I know we've had discussions, some of us have, and I know I have with residents on how do we make sure that we can foster this? How can we get participation? So I started thinking, and one of the things, and we all know about this new Form 6 that the state legislature passed in the last legislative session, which was going to require all of us now to put a full financial disclosure, much more in depth than has ever been done. And there's a lot of concern. The Florida League of Cities was against it. I talked to some of our colleagues in other cities. Some are against it. Some are like, okay, fine. It is what it is. And others, there are some commissioners have resigned already. One in Seminole and one up the beach, one of the beaches, beach communities. Rumor is there's more to come. So that aside, I looked at this and said, is this the time that we should maybe look at that, and is there a way we can in the slower time, although last year wasn't very slow in the summer, maybe not have meetings. Now, in order to do that, it's a charter, so it's a referendum. It's not something we can vote on. But I wanted to start the discussion because a referendum isn't a 5-minute exercise either. It's not a vote. So that's why I pulled it out. As I said, I think the dates are fine. If we left it in consent, I would make the motion to approve it. But I wanted to have start the discussion on this other item. And that's why. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say another alternative is to, pick a month, whether it's July, August, whatever, and do an early meeting and a later meeting, try and free up as close to a month as possible, and that would not require a referendum, a charter change, which would be a referendum. It's something, I think we've done that before in the past. It was kind of a good suggestion to try and figure out, what month. Typically, it's July and August that people are trying to get away on, summer vacation. So that would be another way to do it.
And you have to have a budget meeting, so that can always count as one of your meetings. It doesn't say it has to be, can't be a workshop. It just says 2 meetings. The charter says 2 meetings.
2 meetings per month.
Doesn't say specific days, doesn't say specific times. So you can have your budget workshops that we have, that are like all day. I mean, technically that could count as one of your July meetings. It's just an option. But we will have to have a budget meeting because we'll have to adopt it tentative to go on the tram notice. And we'll obviously have to have a workshop to get to that point. So that's one case or option.
Yeah, you could even do one early July and then one late August, and that gives you almost the whole summer.
Yeah, just. Because despite public opinion, commissioners do have lives.
Yeah, but it does bring up a good point on, the challenges of this is not to take away anything from anyone up here, but the challenges of having people to serve on the commission, on the different committees, and the boards, and so anything we can do that can foster that would be great. All right, do we have a motion to approve the 2024 calendar?
So moved.
Second?
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frislowski?
Yes.
Mayor Petrella?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 7B, Resolution 2023-04.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, providing for approval of proposed policy changes for the Historic Preservation Board, providing for construction, scrivener's errors, and for an effective date.
Thank you, Amber. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Matthew McConnell. This resolution was the result of the joint workshop that we had. There was a few changes that were requested by some of you. In Section 2, I believe the request was to add whenever possible and financially feasible to the beginning of that section. Washingtonia, there was a spelling error, and then Passacro overlay, there was we put some dashes in that. So besides that, that's what staff observed from the workshop. Those changes have been made, but at the end of the day, this is a resolution that the commission has to approve, so you can make additional changes. Really, the floor is yours.
I think our workshop was pretty comprehensive on this, not only from the standpoint of what the intent and purpose was, but as well as to drill down into the specifics of it to make sure that we're affording some specific line items that the future, and as the future of the city as we go forward, we'll know what needs to go in front of the Historic Preservation Board, and that we have documentation of it. And I think that was one of the objectives, is getting this resolution so that it is in writing and forever memorialized with the city, so that whoever comes after Lynn Rossetti, whoever comes after Matthew, whoever comes after this board that sits there now, everyone will know what should be coming before that board. I don't think that, and I think we vetted this pretty well, it didn't grant any authority to the board other than the opportunity to review and advise. So I'm satisfied with the workshop efforts, the result, and the editing that took place after the meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Commissioner Grove?
My view hasn't changed from the workshop that we had back in August, and I said then, and I still find that what's in front of us tonight is too prescriptive. It's a mix of form and function, and I really don't see the need for the resolution, and I'll tell you there's 3 reasons why. If we look at our current Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Article 7, Section 22-211, it talks about purposes, powers, and duties. And Section D, and that's in Section D, it contains 18 bullets, and some of those bullets have additional sub-bullets that further explain powers and duties of the Historic Preservation Board. For example, if we really need to further expand, then I think what we should do is, so for example, I'll just read a couple. The board shall develop design guidelines. They should approve, deny, or approve with conditions applications. Approve or deny applications for certificates. I mean, it's very, the ordinance with all of these bullets is very, very prescriptive and states what should be done. So if we think we need more, why would we do a resolution and not change an ordinance? And if the ordinance isn't working as intended, why should we not address that problem instead of writing a resolution, and then we got, is this an enforcement issue? It's not clear. Section 20, the second item is Section 22-212 is entitled Staff Participation and Responsibilities. And the same as I just mentioned, it's already addressed in the ordinance, so why do we need to have a separate resolution to enforce what's in the ordinance? We had discussion in the workshop that staff isn't involving the board, the Historic Preservation Board, as the board feels they should be. Let's work on that problem. Why do we need a resolution to reiterate what's already in an ordinance? We don't need to just pile on additional regulations. And third, I think if we're going to be this prescriptive for an advisory board, then should we not look at other boards? I don't think and I really don't think we should do that. We don't want to get prescriptive down to the nth degree. And if I just pick the Beach Stewardship Committee as an example for comparison. The beach is a key, unique asset that we have. It's in our city name. We talk about the beach. Heck, we've been working on a beach ordinance for over a year now. So that's how important it is to our city. Yet when you look in the ordinance, the same ordinance that talks about the different boards, there's only 3 bullets on powers and responsibilities for the Beach Committee. We're going through major renourishment right now with the beaches. I mean, we don't need to rediscuss that. The Beach Committee isn't even involved. I've been forwarding things to the Beach Committee, and I get emails, thank you for forwarding it. No one's been sending this to us. And I'm not proposing that we write another resolution, but we already have ordinances, so why do we need to now to have yet another resolution to say we should be doing what we're already doing? So I don't think the resolution's needed. I think if we're going to make changes, we should do so to the ordinance. And before doing that, I think we should address the root of the problem and not just add additional regulations. So that's my view on this. Thank you.
I don't think any of that was questions. I don't know if you're looking for a response, Mayor, but
I'm just, those are my views. Right.
yeah.
So what does this add that's not in the ordinances?
Doesn't add any powers or duties. I mean, most of this is, and we went through this in the workshop, but just to give you a timeline, I've been sitting in the Historic Preservation Board since Commissioner Marone was the chair, and there's a couple initiatives that the board has initiated, and this is one of them. There were some talks and things that city staff and prior commissioners thought were already happening citywide, and when we did a deep dive into some of the records and things that, for example, shell alleyways and hex blocks that we thought were already transcribed in writing, we couldn't find anything. And at that point, the board wanted to memorialize it in a resolution. They didn't want to change their powers and duties, which would have required an ordinance. These are more policy decisions, directives to staff on when to bring things for their review and when not to. And that's kind of how it got to where it is right now.
And I'll further that to point out that the language does say whenever possible and financially feasible. This does not have the force of law like your codes would, but it is an expression, and that's how you express yourself as a commission through resolutions formally. It's an expression of what you want, what you would like to see done. For example, in the public streetscape, the Washingtonian trees and the hex blocks and so forth and so on.
So, if I may, Mayor, to Commissioner Vice Mayor Grell's point, we do have an ordinance. It does govern this board and its duties and responsibilities. The problem is what you're looking at in this resolution can't be found specifically in that ordinance. It can be read into it, and you can look at the ordinance and go, well, I think when I read it, I think it should allow the Historic Preservation Board to review X, Y, and Z before the city makes the decision, or at the very least, to make comment and advise the commission on an action the commission is going to take with having no particular power or duty. But it's not, the ordinance doesn't have that kind of specificity as the resolution. So the resolution really contains more day-to-day type things that this board would like to hear that fits into the resolution, but being able to articulate to every person in the city every time people come through what they would like to review. And say, well, look, it says hex blocks. Well, it doesn't say hex blocks in the ordinance. But Lynn Rossetti was just replaced, and that person should know. And this board should know, and this department head should know that this should come before the Historic Preservation Board. They're not all pulling the ordinance. Had they pulled the ordinance, they wouldn't see these kind of things. And these ultimately leave the staff to make judgment calls or not give it to the board at all. So this is prompting folks to let the board see these things. And it's not codifying it, but it's putting it in a document that will be a city document so that others down the road can refer to it. It's almost kind of like a city cheat sheet for the Historic Preservation Board. But it ties into what their duties and responsibilities are, but with a little bit more specificity without having to go the route of amending the ordinance to put in these details, I would say. I won't call them details that fit into the bigger picture of the ordinance. We can certainly consider an ordinance amendment, but as was discussed with council, this may be, especially considering that the board is an advisory board only, that it be better handled in a resolution. So I think I think to your point, you're right. We do have an ordinance. It hits generally on these things, but as the board goes, as it operates, it sees things happening and says, well, that seems to fit in within the purview, right within the ordinance. Why isn't it coming before us? We didn't know. We didn't know. We didn't know you wanted to see this. Well, we told you last time, but now we have it in a document. So really, it's just saying, here it is in writing, and everybody agrees that that's stuff that should come before our board. So it's almost kind of as simple as that, although it seems more complicated because it's a resolution and it's itemized. I think that's really the intent of it, and I think I think it doesn't do more than what we already have, other than it alerts the rest of the city staff to what this board would like to see.
And I would say we're a little bit unique and special in that out of all the barrier islands, there's only one building on the National Register of Historic Places, and that's the Don Cesar, and there's only one district, and that's Paso Grill District. So it's something that, these things, I think, add to the character of it, and I think it does, I think it's good to kind of spell some of these out. I did have a question on one of them, the seventh one down, or the second one from the bottom. All new structures constructed within the Paso Grill Overlay District that utilize the overlay building type shall be presented to the Historic Preservation Board as a design review. All new construction to the underlying district shall be presented as an informational item. Is the purpose there an after the fact thing?
The purpose from the board was really notification of what's being built down there.
So, should it, I don't want to wordsmith, but should it say all new structures to be constructed? What is I'm trying to understand if if I was an owner and permitting a project, is that during the permitting process, they have a chance to look at it, or is this to learn from something that's already been approved?
They have a chance to look at it, but strictly just to look at it. Right? Okay. They're not making a decision, but they're just looking at it because we're also developing design guidelines and other things that they're going to start utilizing. But at first, it was only things built to the overlay that they were seeing, and most people would build to the underlying zoning district because they were trying to avoid coming to the Historic Preservation Board in a way when you build new houses and structures down there.
Okay,
so this is more of, regardless of what zoning district you're building to, you're going to come in front of the board either as an informational or some kind of design review. But it's not to approve or deny what you're doing. It's more of just informational.
Okay.
So we're putting an extra step on someone who wants to build a house, pull a permit, but it's informational, so we're giving them that extra hurdle. And when feasibly possible, what if the homeowner says, well, why do I need to take an extra X amount of time to do this? Just get this done. I want to build my house.
From what I'm hearing, that's not the applicant, that's staff showing it to the board, right? That's
for
not
the most
applicant
part.
going through.
It's the city.
That's why I want to clarify it. When is this happening? It's not slowing down a permitting process, the way I'm understanding it. And it's not the applicant going for, right? It's staff showing it to the board?
And if someone buys a property in Paso Grill right now and builds to the overlay, they're required to come in front of the Historic Preservation Board anyways.
Yeah.
Right? That's already a requirement. This is more for, it was people building to the underlying zoning district, which is why we put it in here as an informational item, which is, we don't need the applicant, staff's getting here and saying, hey guys, this is a new house that's coming through and we're showing you as information.
So the ordinance that I referenced, bullet 6, approve or deny applications for certificate of appropriateness for new construction or alterations to existing structures within the Paso Grill overlay based on adopted guidelines. Isn't that pretty clear?
Correct.
So why do we need a resolution?
This is for construction to the underlying zoning district.
As I said, there's 18 plus 4 sub-bullets, so I'm not an expert in this, but okay.
There's two different ways that they can go, so I understand it better now. Somebody goes one way, that doesn't go before the board, so the board gets to see what's being done.
Okay. Then can I make a request that we work on this for every other board that we have? Because we have very similar concerns from other boards.
I think you brought up a perfect example with the beach renourishment.
Absolutely, and I said...
I'm saying that, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I will. I'm saying it facetiously, because I don't think we need it. We just need staff to involve, and I'm not picking on staff, we as a city need to involve our advisory boards in the activities, period. And I don't think we need to have an ordinance or a resolution to tell people, do your job. If you're part of the beach team, I'll pick on the beach team because renourishment's hot in everybody's mind, involve the beach committee. Do we need a resolution to tell people in the beach, the beach organization, please make sure you bring the board on board? Anyway.
Some of this is also responding, wasn't there a joint workshop with the commission?
Not only that, this is all board initiated, right? I mean, this is not something...
And I brought these same points up in the workshop.
You know, this was me sitting at the board and the board working through things and saying, I want to propose this, and the beach stewardship respectfully could do the same thing, and so could the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Board, and whatever other board, library advisory, finance review, I mean, they could all do the same thing, and I would essentially do the same thing for them. Put it in a format, bring it forward, because that's the board's initiative. But it's up to you. You could deny it, you could approve it, but I feel like I owe it to every board that I sit on to advise them legally on how to do things.
Absolutely. That's why we have you.
No problem.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, I think it brings up a good point. And this is, again, not in any way to say this is a negative from the staff point. Because I appreciate that sometimes in the absence of direction, they just take the ball and run with it, right? But as we're, moving forward, looking at potentially looking at hiring a new city manager, and I think one of the things that we can look at is, how do we involve the staff and the residents and the different boards more actively rather than passively, right? So that's what they're there for. And we should be taking advantage of those resources.
I think that these boards can be a great assist to staff if staff knows how to use the board. And a lot of times they don't know what the purview of the board is. They're just not involved in that board, so they don't know the purview of it. And in the course of doing their job, they skip that step. And in some cases, it could have made their job a lot easier. But again, we're not in operations. I don't know how people are trained. I don't, This is a much higher level discussion for, I think you're right, new city manager.
Do we have a motion?
I'd move to approve Resolution 2023-18. The resolution, is it?
23-04.
It's 2004. Historic Preservation Board duties. What am I? That's the previous one, I see.
I think you just need to write, make sure 2023-04.
2023-04, yeah.
I'll second that.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Grauls,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
No.
Commissioner Brzezowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Marone.
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
All right, next we have item 8A, East Corey. Commissioner Marone?
So I'm bringing this up, it kind of come a little bit on the tail of what we just heard about this parking lot and green space and parks. And it also picks up where we left off with our predecessor's city manager having this discussion about this East Corey Landings property and maybe the city have an opportunity to buy this property. I think that if the rest of the commission is interested in it as a park, as an undeveloped piece of land, where perhaps we can rebuild the seawall and do some kind of walk under Corey Bridge to link up Haran Park with this park, I think it would extend Corey Avenue into that park. Perhaps it would maybe change the Corey Market a little bit. Maybe it would add to it. I just think that as we look forward, I know how I felt, and I know what the residents talked to me about as it related to that East Corey Landings project. And most of the folks that talked to me about it were very negative about it, about the impact from the number of units that were going to be there, the number of units that were approved for that area. And I just think and I know it's probably going to be expensive. I don't know how to go about purchasing it. I don't know if anybody's interested in it. But if it's something that we're interested in, maybe we should start looking a little bit more closely at it. I really just think that it would be a great long-term asset for the city to have.
We had the discussion, there were 2 points that kind of, I won't say squashed the discussion. One was the price was 15 million, which we thought was actually low. Previous city manager thought that was a low price, but the bigger...
That was his opinion.
That was his opinion, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But the bigger problem is the brownfields designation and the unknown for what's in that land, and when you buy the land, you buy the liability. And how do we box that? Because, I'll just use the 15. 15 could be 30. I mean, we know that and I'm sorry, Ram Realty, I believe, was the buyer. They had done some work related to brownfields. Of course, they never shared that with us. I mean, there are some reports, and we had Mr. Goldstein come in and talk to us at some point. He was the environmental lawyer when we were giving the brownfields designation, so they had some indication. As we had Mr. Clark come up and tell us just on his pipe, when he digs the pipe, he never knows when it gets down there. It could be smaller or it could be a lot bigger. And these are T&M contracts, it could be more. So I'm all for it. I mean, I've talked about with residents, same thing. We've talked about this for a while. But then when we found out it was brownfields, it was like, it's a shame that it's brownfields. The good news, if there's development, the private developer cleans it up. But if then we accept the liability of cleaning it up, I've had some residents say, well, if it's in the ground, does that mean that it leached through the seawalls over the last 30 years and into the bay? We don't know. Or maybe there's nothing. Would you let your children run on it if it's brownfields? Will children want to make it a park? And so, short answer, yes. I think my personal view, yes. It would be great to turn it into green space, and there's lots of ways to do that and purpose it. But the brownfields is really a big item to get our arms around, so that we don't get a very, very bad surprise. So maybe we get a good surprise.
Yeah, and so here's what I think. I think, number one, that obviously needs to be looked into. But I think ultimately the question at the end of the day is, depending on how much it costs and how much it would cost to clean up, if we had to clean it up, would we rather have that, or would we rather have a developer go in, clean it up for the developer's purposes, build 200 units of something, and sell it and walk away, and leave us with that in perpetuity? That's really the question.
Well, I think anytime you have a chance to buy property in a prime location like that on the waterfront is a good opportunity. We did talk about that last time. I think the mayor, I had agreed, let's ask the public. I believe in public-private partnerships. I don't think we had one person step up, but sometimes you do. We wouldn't have built that public pool if it wasn't for someone stepping up and paying for more than half of it. I was thinking, hey, we got one big saltwater pool out here. Why do we want to build a public pool? Fortunately, it's being used a lot, but we wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for the public-private partnership. So I think we'd have to find out what's the cost for that cleanup. Do we even have to clean it up? Because, they were going to dig it up to put in foundations and things. If you're going to make it a park and really just leave the surface, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know that that is really a toxic, deemed a toxic environment. So I think it takes some investigation to figure out, is the 15 million really a good number? Do we have to do cleanup? What would be the cost? If we're going to do improvements, what would that cost? And boy, it'd be great if we had some people step up. And we do have people in this community. It just has to be the right thing and them feeling good about it. And we might want to consider some naming options for a big number. And that would make it a lot easier to do that kind of a thing.
We know soil borings have been done, and the soil's been recovered, and it's been tested. We know that.
Yeah.
We know that it's been tested.
That's all public information because it came before us.
Not only the quality of it, but the strength of it. So we know that. We can take that to an independent geotechnical engineer and geologist and say, what does our cleanup look like, if any?
We may have someone called civils that can look at that, or environmentals.
And I'm just saying, I don't want the conversation to die.
Yeah.
Because we still have the opportunity, and while we still have the opportunity and thinking about what it could have been, I don't know that I can, now that I know that it's not going to be built, want to think about it, another project going there.
Do we know that the developer is not going to do anything? Because the last discussion we had was they were looking for another buyer, is what I understood. and that kind, but that's,
Yeah,
3
that's,
months?
I don't know how old that information, I mean, that information's a couple months old. The buyer walked away, which was Ram, the buyer developer. There's still some email traffic I've seen regarding maybe just extending the permit. That's about it. But, I know that I was told that they were going to try to find someone to step in the shoes of the developer, but I haven't seen any
Yeah, that was
activity on that.
3-4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to work with Wayne on anything you guys, if you want us to do any research or just reach out to, whoever. I mean, whatever they've supplied with regard to the brownfields.
So Wayne, sorry.
You mind? So a couple months back, you all asked us to look into it. So I've gotten all the documents from FDEP. I've sent them to the city's engineer, Brett Warner.
Good, perfect.
So he has all of the stuff that we have.
To tell you guys that.
Okay.
Now, I mean, if you all want, I can reach out. I have no problem calling the state directly and figuring out how we would address something like this.
We already did. Or at least Alex said he did.
And they said, we'd have to fix it?
Yeah, he said.
Well, if you would prefer me confirm that, I wouldn't mind doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, the last conversation we had was that, so some of the thoughts that were, some of the ideas that were circulated were having a public park, having maybe public boat docks that people can use to come to Corey Avenue. It certainly would alleviate a lot of the Corey Sunday Market parking issues if we had something that connected Horan Park where they could just walk underneath. They don't have to cross 75th. No one's, crossing a major artery there. So if I remember correctly, even if we just did sod in the park, it would still require some remediation. Maybe not to the extent if you're driving pilings and footings down. On the cost of the, so I realized that previous city manager thought that cost was low. We've got 2 real estate brokers on the commission here, right, who could probably provide some, discussion on that. I look at it and say the property is worth what depends on what you can put on it, right? So if you're sticking with what's zoned for 90 units, that's one number. If you're getting 300 units, that makes the property worth something completely different. And so I'm thinking that they're looking at a couple things. One, they bought it in 2006 or 2007 for $10 million. They bought that at the height of the previous downturn, right before. Even accounting for inflation at $15 million, they're probably breaking even at this point after 15 years. But then again, if it's zoned for 90 units, maybe it's not worth $15 million, right? It could be worth significantly less because it's, that the land value is going to be some kind of ratio of what the end product is going to be plus your construction cost and, your delta between what you can sell it and what you're going to spend on it. And the city attorney stopped me at any point. But if I remember correctly, Wayne, when you were city manager, looking at other developments that were being proposed at the time and also public works projects, right? There were some instances where we looked at and said, well, if you're going to impact this, maybe you can help us address these issues that we have in the city. So there may be an opportunity there to look and say, well, you're going to, in fact, Naples did this, right, with in the area just south of the estates where they set aside, different wetlands that you could land bank and say, okay, we're going to impact this area over here. It has wetlands, and what we're going to do is you're going to have to buy a matching acre over here to set aside in perpetuity. So if there is an area that you're impacting in a different part of the city, maybe you would like to acquire and donate or help the city acquire this property and then donate it to the city as a city park or help us acquire it for the purposes of a city park, plus whatever cost for remediation and then building something on it. So I think there are opportunities. Another way to look at it is say, like if there's a referendum and the residents want us to acquire the property and they're willing to look at a bond, for example. I mean, there's there's any different ways that we can finance it. But I think there are some creative options that, whether it's, residents or developers or, the commission want to look at. I think there's ways to acquire it even, I think 50 million is high. Unless you get a certain density on it, the number probably doesn't make sense. Just an idea. Say we've done this in the past with public works projects. They were tied to other projects.
Correct. If the commission would like for us to start digging into this for several issues surrounding it, we'd be glad to dig into it and see what it would take and get some answers for you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because the last time you got roughly half of the sewer system conditionally negotiated and agreed to.
Yeah.
It fell apart, but and that was $14 million.
It was.
Yep. And City Attorney, you mentioned about the permits for the East Corey approval. Do we know the timing of those, when those time out?
I know there's been a number of different extensions on it. I don't know what the date ultimately is. There's another issue also that we can look into, which is because, as you recall, through an ordinance, that were given units from the pool. I need to research how long does that remain an entitlement, because it was done through legislation on an ordinance, and the point of that was a kind of a quid pro quo, that there was public benefits that went along with it. So there are no public benefits coming along. So I think that's one of the issues that we need to look into, is what is the status of that ordinance that offered up 100 and some odd units from the pool, because it was strictly based on the benefits that were going to be afforded to the public through the passive park and other things.
Yes.
I think that might be a different animal than just the approval of a CUP.
Yeah, that'd be great that way we have all the info and we can figure out what the best course to move it forward.
That's all I had, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have reports. City Clerk.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about conditional use permits and agenda management. So, as you know, conditional use permits make the agenda very heavy and long, especially if we have a lot of business and then we have a lot of public. So one thing that the mayor and I talked about, and then I subsequently spoke with the legal team and the city manager on how to handle this process, because as you are aware, we have the Serrata conditional use permit community meeting. They have a time frame. It must be heard in front of the commission in December. And Trade Winds is also the next to come, but that will be in 2024, early 2024. After discussions with the city manager and Brandon Planner, who is taking on the Serrata, we would like to devote your December 5th meeting specifically to the Serrata, to allow for ample community input and discussion, presentation, and then your December 12th meeting would be a regular scheduled meeting. I wanted to see what you all thought about that, if you would prefer to have a special meeting specifically for that. Just bogging it down with other items of business, it makes for a long day and it makes it harder.
I mean, it's probably a good idea. Maybe the only thing that we should include is, like today we had with the one emergency item, semi-emergency item, so that we don't exclude anything that, if it's of urgent nature.
Yes, subject to the urgency. I don't have a problem with a single item agenda, especially one is that big.
Yeah.
And then if there's, the one or two housekeeping matters or urgency things that need to be done by deadlines, we can knock those things out and spend the rest of our valuable time with this.
And this is contingent on them going before the planning board first.
That's correct.
Is that scheduled?
November 13th, in front of the planning board. Also, I'm going to work with staff to get the agenda 1 week in advance as opposed to the Thursday prior, because I do know that this will be something that you all need a lot of time to review. And the same with trade winds. Trade winds, we had discussed a possible second meeting in January. Would it be the same type of opinion, pending anything emergency, just keep trade winds as the sole item and 1 week in advance receive the agenda? Okay. Do we want a motion, city manager, or are you and I okay to work with?
I think we're fine. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. City manager?
Just have a couple of quick items. One, I just wanted to update y'all on everybody's favorite subject is the garbage pickup down in Paso Grill. We did started some work on that. A couple of people from Waste Connection, our Public Works staff, as well as Bill Lowry, did a ride-through of most if not all of the alleyways, looking at specific issues that would need to be addressed if we want to put trucks back in there. And there was a large number of properties that there were issues that need to be addressed. We're not ready to finalize that report to you. We'll have that probably in hopefully at the next meeting, but there were many properties, whether it was vegetation or fences or other structures, but I just wanted to update you that we are working on that, and we have found a large number of properties that would be impacted if we have to go in and start doing work in order to get trucks back in there that could work effectively and safely. So just wanted to let you know where we are on that.
Thank you.
The other item I have is the ad for the search firm for the new city manager is out, and there's a couple of ways we can go through this process in selecting the search firm. We can have an internal city staff committee, usually 3 people or so, go through those proposals, come up with what we think are the best 3 or whatever, and have those come to you, make presentations, and the commission choose the search firm excuse me, that you would like. The other, and I'll need to get Matthew's help on this, but this has been done in the past as long as the RFQ is written correctly, and that would be to just let the staff committee select one and just bring that to you for approval or actually we just move forward with that. That would save a little bit of time in getting it working, getting them developing what they want to do. They would still need to come in front of y'all to work on how you want them to proceed. But as far as the selection, it's really up to y'all, I believe, unless Matthew tells me different, that we can do it either way. We can bring the top 3 to you. They can make presentations, and you can choose, or we can select one that we think is the most qualified and move forward. Matthew, I don't know if you have anything to add to that or not.
Thank you, Wayne. I think either option's okay, with the understanding that based on the price, I'm assuming a contract would probably be somewhere north of $25,000, so you would ultimately have to approve the contract. But either option that Wayne laid out would be appropriate. You would just have to delegate that authority to him if you wanted him to select it. But again, it would come in front of you in the form of a contract due to the purchase amount.
The only difference is it takes your time if you want to listen to and it would take probably an additional 3 weeks to go that route as opposed to just picking one. It's up to y'all.
I'm more concerned about the applicant than I am the firm that's finding the applicant, and I'm comfortable with city staff selecting the firm.
We would probably, I spoke with the city clerk, typically we'd have city clerk and probably Jennifer or maybe even our procurement officer and myself would, look at all those, and I think we could come up with probably who's best, and we could be moving a lot faster that way.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Speed
That's great. Thank you. That's all I had, man.
Thank you, sir. City Attorney?
Yes, thank you. Wanted to make a proposal, a slight change in the way that our special magistrate meetings are held, and see if there's any objection to them. We do have 2 magistrates, and we had a process, or we have a process where it's bifurcated, where short-term rentals are heard at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then everything else is heard later on in the afternoon. We think we're at a point now where 1 meeting is appropriate in the morning and can be handled. And we've spoken with Erica Aguila? Yeah, close enough. She's going to hate me for it. With Trask, and we've spoken with Mr. Thamus, and he said he would be willing to be back up on that. So we'd prefer to kind of just streamline it back down to 1 meeting instead of 2 on the special magistrate day. If there's no objections to that, we go that direction.
Yeah, no objections. Is that because we don't have enough cases before the short-term rental, or the other?
Matt, I think it's actually the short-term rentals are actually probably the bigger agenda. Matthew's the one that handles those, but
more of staff preparation. I mean, we always only had 1 meeting, and then when we solicited this, we decided to do 2 and kind of separate. But there's been some situations with Erica's having to cover meetings that Thanis is out, and we've seen how she works, and at the end of the day, he's willing to be a backup, so if she's ever unavailable, then we're definitely covered, but it just makes sense to have 1 meeting.
Thank you.
No problem.
So, no objection, I guess.
No objection.
All right, great.
All right,
Thank you.
Commissioner Marone?
We have the plantings in on the dunes. Some people still don't recognize it. They can't walk over the dunes. In fact, I took a picture of some people that left some flip-flops on the top of the dunes so they could walk out to the beach that says it's closed. I checked with Jennifer the other day because her yellow caution tape had been ripped and people walked over the walkover, so I talked to Wayne. We have the yellow, the orange mesh out there now. It seemed to be pretty effective this afternoon for a while. I don't know how, hopefully it will last the weekend. And then we have some cleanup to do out there before we get the parking spaces open again, before we get the walkovers and then the parking spaces. So that's the process. Heard about garbage. I don't think you all need to hear more about garbage for me. And that's really, we're a little quiet out there right now for us, which is nice. It's an opportunity to regroup.
Well, Wayne and I spoke about the dunes again this morning as well, and we do have that discretionary account with the sheriff, where if we needed to allocate additional resources, so maybe that's something you and the city manager can look at, if we need to put some there for a couple hours on Saturdays, Sundays.
So the beautiful thing about the dunes is that you can't see over them.
Yeah.
The bad thing about the dunes is you can't see over them. So we have to have a body actually, probably at Paradise Grove, you can look straight down and you can see the people on the beach who've walked right past the barricade that says the beach is closed. Dangerous construction, fragile beach, renourishment. Okay. Yeah, I just won't go up there, and then they do. So yeah, I think but we're going to have to put somebody in a uniform, whether it's a city uniform or a sheriff's deputy uniform, on the beach with a whistle or a bullhorn that says beep, 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 get off the beach.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think Sunset Beach is going through the same. People just ignoring, and unfortunately, we're not any better than anybody else. In Madeira, they're going to go through there. So Yeah, I was at Paradise Grill last Sunday, yes, you can just look right down the beach, and the signs are right there, beach closed, and there's people on the beach, and then if you go around and walk on the First Avenue, just on the walkway there, and start looking north, there's people who are coming down, climbing down the rocks, and walking up the beach.
You know, there's one additional thing we're going to try to do. I'm sure people will still ignore that to a certain extent, but we have asked DEP approval to put posts and rope out as another precaution, and we think we'll have that approval within the next week. So that should help some, but we'll still have some of those people that will go under the ropes too. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Kozlowski.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things to announce. I have a Lido Beach Civic Association meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock at Lido Park, and then a Bella Vista Civic Association meeting on Thursday night at 6:30 at Bill Carrata Park in Bella Vista. And then Saturday, the Don Cesar Property Owners Corporation is having their second annual Halloween pet parade, and they've invited everyone. You don't have to just be from the Don area. And they are working with the city to relax the parking in that area as long as you're going to the parade, not to the beach. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Crowe.
A couple items. We have the Big C meeting tomorrow in Bel Air Beach. One of the things I wanted to mention earlier on we had a lot of audience feedback on the tree and the tree permit process, and I had discussed with the previous city manager a need to, I think, to relook at our ordinance. The after-the-fact permit, for example, is $100, and I'll just leave it at that, and we might want to just take another look at that and see, is that really meeting the intent of what we're trying to do with the tree permit process?
We'll certainly do that.
Thank you. And of course, it's Halloween weekend coming up, so I know there's a lot of parties, a lot of things going on in the city, so please, everybody, be careful. We know we have, pedestrians who maybe don't always do the right thing, so please, everybody, be on alert and be careful and have a great holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraus.
Yeah, just a couple things. We are having our District 1 community meeting Wednesday, November 1st at 5:30 here in City Hall. And we're going to go over a couple of things. We'll get a Bogosiega Drive project status update, some electrical upgrounding status, development update, Egan Park update. So pop by and stop in if you have any comments for that. The 27th, this coming Friday, I think is going to be our last concert in the park at Horan Park over here, and we've had good turnout for those. And I believe it's an Aerosmith tribute band, so if anybody wants to get dressed up as any of the Aerosmith guys and come out and hang out, that'd be great. And then 28th and 29th is the Corey Avenue Craft Show. So weather should be good for that. Come out and support some local businesses and buy some crafts.
Thank you, sir. All right. As I mentioned last time, I was appointed to the PSTA board. First meeting that I'll be at is tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at the PSTA headquarters. So if you have any, it's going to be a public meeting just like this, audience comments. So if you have any concerns about the PSTA, Sunrun, or any of the other operations, I want to invite you to come and participate in that as well. And I'm excited to be there and represent our town and the beaches. All right, thank you everyone for coming. We are adjourned.